This is the new Toyota Sequoia, and it has a big job because it has to replace not only the ancient previous generation version of itself, but also the Toyota Land Cruiser, since Toyota doesn't sell that anymore here in North America. So we're going to hit the highlights of this new Sequoia, both good and bad. Welcome to Downshift, my name is Matt. This is the new Toyota Sequoia, specifically in the capstone trim. It's the most luxurious, it's the most Lexus version of the Sequoia that you can get, and it's really, really nice. But nothing's perfect, so we're going to talk about the best and the rest, starting with the rest. The first thing that we're going to talk about is the chrome. As a millennial, I have sworn a solemn oath to hate chrome in all of its applications. I will say though, if I were to like chrome, it would probably be in this spec with this nice wind chill pearl paint. But there's chrome everywhere. You've got chrome on your grille, on your hood, on your front bumper, your wheels, your wing mirrors, your door handles, your window treatments, your lower door runner, your roof rails, your rear mustache, the Sequoia lettering on the tailgate, and the rear bumper. I know it's my generation's responsibility to hate chrome, but it's done tastefully here. Number 2 is ride shutter. Now the ride on here is generally pretty nice for something of this size and weight, and being a body-on-frame truck-based SUV. That's largely thanks to the fact that the capstones, you can get the 4-corner adaptive suspension and the self-leveling rear air suspension. So for the most part, the ride is comfy, the cabin is quiet until the engine revs to life, and then it's starting to shout V8 noises at you through the speakers. The steering is light and it's fine, and the visibility is pretty good for something of this size. However, when you come to like a small or medium-sized bump in the road, it does remind you that it's a truck, and a truck with a solid rear axle at that. The back end will shudder around a little bit more than I'd like it to, and a little bit more than something like a Tahoe or a Grand Wagoneer with their independent rear suspension. The ride is pretty good, but it could just be improved a little bit with an independent rear suspension. And number 3, we'll talk about the second row, and the second row specifically is actually pretty good, and we'll talk about that on the good side of the video, but I have to talk about the way that the second row seats fold out of the way so you can get to the third row. You pull on this little lever here, and it folds, and then it hinges up, and now you have this nice big opening. It's easy to get into the third row. The problem now is that if you have a car seat right here for a child, infant, toddler, anything like that, well, you can't have it here. So you either have to go in from the other side, or you have to crawl over it, then walk through the center pass-through area, which we'll talk about again later, or you just have to not have kids. Number 4 is no 4 auto setting. I will say, this new Sequoia is shockingly modern, especially for a Toyota. It couldn't get away with just sticking the iForce V8 under the hood from last gen and shouting reliability at every argument. Everything here is new and way more modern than you'd expect from Toyota, until you get to the 4x4 system. Everything else in the segment offers either a full-time 4-wheel drive or a 4 auto setting, where the computer will use the wheel sensors to detect slip and engage the front wheels if it does in fact detect that slip. Not here though. Good old classic part-time 4-wheel drive. A little annoying. But there's a lot of good things happening, so let's talk about those. The first thing that I like is the new chassis itself. This, along with the Tundra and the incoming Tacoma and the incoming 4Runner and the Lexus LX and the incoming Lexus GX, they'll all be on this new generation of Toyota truck chassis. They're calling it the TNGA-F chassis, and it's a big deal. It's stronger, it's more rigid, and it's hundreds of pounds lighter than the previous generation, which means you get better fuel economy, you get better towing capacity, you get 9,500 pounds of towing in this bad boy. The next thing I like is this little Easter egg that you get here on the passenger side of the windshield. It's pretty common, especially in Jeeps, to have some little Easter egg here, typically a Wrangler, crawling up the side of the windshield here. But here on the Toyota Sequoia, it says right here, "With mountains, Toyota trucks." And then you'll notice that it has these dots rimming the entire windshield, which is pretty common, but they're not all consistent right here around the Toyota trucks. And what it actually is Morse code, and what it translates to is badass trucks. Hilarious. But the Easter eggs don't stop there. No, under the hood you have 2 Easter eggs, one on this side, on the passenger side, that says R&D'd in Michigan, with the outline of the state, including the Upper Peninsula, which as a Wisconsinite, I feel like that should be our territory, but I digress. And then on the other side, it says born in Texas. So it was R&D'd and developed in Michigan, and it was built in Texas. This is a truly American truck, or SUV, and Toyota wants you to know that. And then we talk about power and efficiency. The Sequoia, unlike its sister, the Tundra, only gets one engine option. It's the iForce Max. No, I know we're all sad about no longer having the 5.7 liter naturally aspirated iForce V8, and that's sad, but we move on. This is 2023, and we move forward because we are human beings. So what you get now is a 3.5 liter twin turbo V6 iForce Max engine. Of course, it's got a hybrid component that does about 48 horsepower from the electric motor, and then that in tandem with the gas engine does about 437 horsepower and 583 pound-feet of torque. That is serious power. All of that power goes through a 10-speed transmission, and the fuel economy that I've been seeing through some combined highway and side street testing is about 21, somewhere between 20 and 22 mpg, which is pretty impressive. Now, you can get more power from a V8 from the Tahoe or Yukon or something like that, and you can get more fuel economy from the Tahoe or Yukon diesel options. However, if you go with the diesel options, you're going to get over 100 horsepower less and over 100 pound-feet of torque less. So this combines fuel economy and power, and that 9,500 pound towing capacity combines it really well here with this hybrid iForce Max system. And number 4, we're going to talk about the looks. Now, I know I complained about the chrome earlier, but this I mean in just terms of the actual styling and the design of the vehicle. I love the more boxy and geometric and, let's say, rugged design that you get here on this new Sequoia. The front end with the big grille looks expensive and intimidating. The profile looks very Lexus LX, and the rear has strong lines and design. Overall, it's just a super handsome 3-row, which isn't always easy to pull off. Wagoneer. And then number 5, you get real proper luxury stuff on this Toyota. You get things like power running boards, really nice white leather, real open pore wood grain, a pano roof, you get huge screens, you've got a full color head-up display, you've got heated and cooled seats both front and second row, you get a heated steering wheel, and you get window shades for the second and shockingly the third row too. I mean, we just spent a week in the new Cadillac Escalade V in November. That's the top of the top, the best one that they can do. And from an interior and specifically materials perspective, there's not a big difference between that and this. This is impressive. And then when we talk about the trunk, we have loads of customizability starting from how you open it. Now, it of course is a power lifted tailgate, which you would expect at an $80,000 price tag, but you also have the rear glass, which opens independently of the tailgate itself. So if you don't want to wait for it to hinge all the way open and all the way closed, you can just drop stuff in there. It doesn't come down like it would in a 4Runner, it flips out like it would in something like a Lexus GX or LX. But then when we talk about the actual trunk itself, now, it's really crazy the customizability that you can get here. Now, importantly, this being the hybrid, your battery pack is under your third row right here. It's a nickel metal hydride rather than a lithium, so it takes up a little bit more space. And being under here, that means that you actually have a bit of a hump from where your trunk would normally be in terms of your floor to where it actually is. So Toyota builds this little shelf system so you can have it at the lowest rung, which makes it level with the floor. And then you've got the middle rung, which if you have the third row folded like I do myself, then you have a nice flat floor. And of course this opens, so you have a nice transition between your shelf and your seats. And then if you want to have more of a dedicated additional layer of storage, you can flip it all the way up here. So now you can store stuff down here or up here on this shelf. And then, I'm sorry, it just keeps going. You have these dials here, or these pull tabs, so you can make the trunk space bigger or smaller if you want more legroom in the third row. And of course, you can drop and raise your third row seats electronically from back here. So a huge, totally customizable space for your trunk. And then number 7 is interior design and specifically the materials. I know we touched on this just a little bit ago, but I want to revisit it because I think it deserves a little bit more discussion. The build and material choices in here are genuinely premium or luxury tier. There are materials and build facets on this Sequoia that are even better than the Escalade we had in November. I love the two-tone white and black leather. The open pore wood feels expensive. I think the only thing holding it back from a true luxury designation is if some of the silver or chrome plastics were aluminum and then maybe a little bit less rubber. But that's really it. It's a really, really impressive interior space, especially wearing a Toyota badge. And number 8, I want to talk about the screens and the technology. We've talked these things to death in our Tundra reviews, but they're the same and they're great here. You've got a nice big digital instrument cluster. It doesn't offer a lot of customizability, but the graphics look nice and are genuinely helpful. You've got a nice full color head-up display, but the main event is the massive 14-inch infotainment screen. You get awesome stuff like wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, although I will mention that on one of the days this week, my wireless connection did get a little finicky on me a couple times, but you can plug your phone in for a more stable connection. This head unit also gets over-the-air updates, so it's always modern and most up-to-date. You do get dual Bluetooth connections, so you or your partner or somebody else in your family can connect to the car. It's quick, it's got great graphics. The 360 cameras are really nice, at least when you're in reverse. If you hit the camera button on your center console, you get the useless spinning Toyota egg, which I'm not sure why they still do that, but they do. And then finally, right here, you have Toyota's latest safety system, which even over the past 2-3 years has been one of our top 5 safety systems. So you really love to see all of this technology coming in and making an actual difference in how you drive and interact with the car. Nice job. And then I want to talk about the back seats, or the second row here, and they are genuinely and just proper nice back here. The second row seats don't slide, and you have marginally less room than you would in a Highlander, but that could simply be thanks to the plush and cushy capstone seats. But I still have plenty of legroom and headroom at 6'1". I've got map pockets back here, I've got chargers, USB A and C, I've got climate controls and vents, I've got heated and cooled seats back here, I've got a nice pano roof making it feel spacious, and I have sunshades. The only weird thing is this center console area, which is just basically a plastic applique with cup holders that they've fixed to the floor. Not sure why it's not raised or if they've just gotten rid of it entirely and had a nice simple pass-through, but that's what they chose to do. And then the third row can be either the best or the worst in terms of space. If you have the seats slid all the way back into the trunk, even I have great legroom at 6'1". If you need more trunk space, you'll lose legroom, of course. The battery for the hybrid system, like we mentioned, is under the third row here, so my knees are a little high, but how often do you have adults back here? I also have USB-C back here, but just on the passenger side. And I have window shades, which you don't get anywhere else. And I have power recline, and I can fold these seats from either the second row, the third row, or in the trunk. And I have climate vents and cup holders back here. So overall, this is one of the more comfortable third rows I've ever been in. And the last thing that I want to talk about is price. Now, as tested, this Sequoia capstone is just over $80,000, which is big money for a Toyota badge. But when you really start to think about it and start comparing it against the competitions, you're getting a lot of car for your money here. You're getting the new chassis, which is stronger. You've got that better towing capacity. You've got a really powerful and pretty efficient powertrain underneath here. And then you've got all of the nice interior features, and it's wrapped in a genuinely luxurious interior build and materials. So when you start to compare it against things like Escalades that we've talked about once or twice now, those can climb easily over 6 figures. So at $80,000, this starts to almost sound like a bargain, which is a weird thing to say about an $80,000 Toyota, but here we are. So that's it. That's the best and the rest for this new Toyota Sequoia, at least in capstone trim. Overall, I'm super impressed with this thing. It's such a gigantic leap forward from the previous generation. It's powerful, it's efficient, it's packed to the gills with stuff. And at least in this capstone trim, it is wrapped in a Lexus light interior, let's say. So overall, I am very impressed with this new Sequoia. So thanks to Toyota for letting me have a go.